An historian of education, a professor at NYU. Her best-selling book is called The Death and Life of the Great American School System. Please welcome back to the program, Diane Ravitch. Thank you for joining us.
Wonderful to be here.
The Death and Life of the Great American School System, how testing and choice are undermining education. Now, you have to forgive me, but I believe if I'm correct, and I think I am, the conventional wisdom is testing and choice are saving the great American school system. So I think the premise of your book is probably wrong. I think you probably want to take all that back. You go ahead.
Well, let me ask your studio audience, how much do you like testing? Well, that's half the argument right there.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's the way it goes. So why is, in your mind, so this is No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top. These are the things that are damaging our abilities in schools, is that?
Yeah, I mean, basically what's happened since No Child Left Behind, which has now been around for almost 10 years, is that schools have been turned into testing factories, and there's less time for the arts. We have schools cutting the arts completely. Less time for science, less time for history, for physical education, for civics. I mean, all the things that make school interesting and
You
fun.
almost said fun. No.
Fun. No, I stumbled on fun, it's true. But kids have to have a reason to want to come to school. No, I've never met any child who said, I can't wait to get to school for test prep.
But yet, they would still have to have it at some level. And No Child Left Behind certainly arose, though, out of a need to fix schools. It's not as though in the 90s schools were great. So what would be the right fix,
well,
or is it just too complicated?
We could look, for instance, at Finland. Finland's the #1 nation in the world on the international test. In Finland, they never give standardized tests at all. They focus on having really terrific teachers. They prepare them well. They give them lots of support. And then the teachers make up the test, and they use the test to say which children need help. Even
critics, people that you know, this Waiting for Superman, they point to Finland as well. Everybody points to Finland.
Mm-hmm. But Finland is not privatizing its school.
Right.
It's not opening charter schools.
Very strong teachers' unions.
Very strong, 100% teachers unionized. Mm-hmm. So Finland is an example of, here's a country that's been incredibly successful. The poverty rate there is less than 3% for children. In this country, it's 20% and growing.
Well, now we're on to something. This is, you know, the educational system in the country is such a complex ecosystem. And it appears that the teachers, because they are the most visible and on the front lines, are the easiest target of the ire of those that would like to express their frustration. And it's not to say that education in the country is in tough times. Why have the teachers, do you think, come under such fire, and how important are they within the scheme of it?
Well, John, I've been traveling this past year since my book came out, and I've gone to about 80 or 90 different places all over the country. And the one thing I've learned is that teachers across America are demoralized. They're demoralized because we've had a public rhetoric for the last few years saying that if test scores are low, it's the teacher's fault, and that's ridiculous, because in our low-poverty schools, our scores are beyond Finland's. Our low-poverty schools do incredibly well, and it's only where we have intense poverty and racial isolation in places like Detroit, Washington, D.C., and Baltimore. And wherever you find poverty and racial isolation, you'll find low test scores because kids are hungry, they're homeless, they're sick, not getting any medical care. Those things matter. And yet we have this corporate reform movement, heavily funded, politically powerful, bipartisan support that says poverty doesn't matter. Well, if you're homeless and you're hungry, it does matter.
Are they saying poverty doesn't matter, or that, because I think there's no denying that some of the parents and a lot of the parents and the children in those poverty-stricken areas and schools have a public school that feels out of control to them, and they want an avenue that they could go to. Is choice the problem either? It seems like charter schools aren't necessarily the problem. None of it deals with the larger issue, which is the environment around the school.
Poverty is a problem. Kids can be poor and still do well in school. But people who teach in schools with a lot of low-performing kids are not necessarily bad teachers. And the whole public monologue for the last few years has been blame the teachers for everything.
That is the thing that I think has been the most mind-blowing for me watching this debate and after sitting through the Wall Street debates and the tax cut debates, to see people blaming the avarice of teachers or the idea that, hey, they only work 9 months a year. God forbid you do the job of a teacher for a year. It will blow your mind at how hard. My mother was a teacher for years. She's worked in the educational field. She's still in the educational field. I couldn't be more impressed by what she did and the work that she did in her life. Those people have no idea.
Well,
and yet that's the conversation.
Yeah, I have been in meetings with CEOs and governors, and they sit around saying, oh, teaching, it's an easy job, and they're overpaid, and their benefits are too much, and they don't know what they're talking about. I mean, I've been in states, I was recently in Arizona, where the average teacher pay is somewhere under $40,000. I'd like to see a governor live on $40,000
But they
a year.
get to also go to the dentist.
Yeah, right.
And you didn't mention that.
That's true.
What can be done, though? What reforms? So let's say are there reforms on the teacher side that you think actually could be implemented that they could do that could also change the conversation? Well, it's certainly not. It's going to take a cooperative effort.
Well, let me just say that I think the things that are being done now by Secretary Duncan, by the Gates Foundation, by the Broad Foundation, by all of these very wealthy, powerful people are taking us on the wrong track because they're focused solely on how do we find the bad teachers. I don't think America is overrun with bad teachers. I think America is overrun by too much poverty among children. And if we're going to talk about what works, we're not going to be talking about which teacher do you find and punish because their kids didn't get high scores.
Right.
We should be talking about how do we make sure that our children have adequate health care and that we have pre-K education,
right,
birth to 5-year-old education, because there's a gap when kids start school. There's a gap at age 3 where poor kids begin and they're already behind because they don't have access to the health care and the vocabulary.
The whole bad teachers argument blows my mind, too. Like, have you been in the world? There's bad everything. You know what I mean? How many fast food restaurants did you go and you're like, what the hell's going on here? How many times have you been to the bank, to Wall Street, the thing? Like, there are crappy people working almost in every field. And yet somehow teachers don't have the luxury of having a couple of crappy ones. Sorry.
Well, I was with a principal the other day in California. We were on a talk show in Los Angeles, and I said, how many teachers have you supervised? She said, and I've been a principal now for about 15 years. I've supervised 300 teachers. I said, how many of them would you say were bad teachers? She said, 1, and I got rid of that 1 teacher.
I cannot believe that principal was allowed to kill a teacher just because they were bad. It's crazy. I would certainly think the union would have to do something about that. The death and life of the great American school system, it's on the bookshelves now. This is maybe one of the most important subjects that I think anybody can handle in America. Thank you for being on the program. Diane Ravitch.
Thank you, John.